Why won't you turn into the Hulk? Get angry!
I want a Hulk. Ah!
I've been working on a bunch of figures in suits lately, and giving them the upgrades they deserve. Personally, I'm not a big fan of figures in civilian clothings. They all look very similar and aren't that fun to pose. That is why I've been making displays for figures like Loki, Mobius, and Nick Fury. Today, I'm going to work on Bruce Banner. There's one thing that these figures have in common. They all share the same feet. So they all have the same balancing issue. I really don't understand why they keep reusing these feet. I saw some comments on tips on how to fix them. But with how common these feet are, this should have been fixed by Hasbro already. Let's deconstruct this figure. Besides balancing issues, this figure actually looks pretty decent. They definitely capture Mark Ruffalo's likeness. The only thing that I don't love is how glossy the coat is. The shirt underneath looks a little too drawn on too, but overall they did a good job. The issue I see with this figure is that despite him being the first MCU Bruce Banner figure, I find him very uninteresting, even though you can instantly tell which movie this figure is based on. I'll explain in a bit, but for now, let me try and make him look less plasticky and more lifelike. Hello, this is Ken. I like making things. Whether it's repainting my figures or making diorama displays, I love making things look awesome. My goal is to elevate my figures so they can shine on my display. Join my DIY venture as I ask myself the same question every week. Can I make it? Let's start with mattifying the jacket. I like the color they used. It's a deep muted purple. But when I look at reference images, I feel like the jacket leans a little bit more blue. So let me mix myself a blue or purple. The color is still too vibrant. I need to dull it down by mixing it with a little bit of the opposite color on the color wheel. This will make the color a bit grayer. Ah, this looks right. Let me add a thin film coat of this over the jacket. The color dried lighter than I expected. I want it to be a smidge darker. So I'm gonna wet my brush and do a quick thin wash of black over it. I generally avoid using black to darken colors, but in this case, I think this will work. Because I still find the color of the jacket too vibrant. The wash of black will dull it down even more. And while that's drying, I'm gonna mix a similar shade of purple for the shirt. But this time, instead of mixing a bit of yellow, I'm gonna mix in a bit of pink instead. I'm going for a more vibrant dark purple, and I'm gonna rub a thin layer of that onto the shirt. I still want those checker lines to still come through, but I want the shirt to appear more purple and less drawn on. In the meantime, let me mattify the pants slightly with a wash of black as well. I like the dark gray pants they gave him, but it's the shine. I don't like the shine. Okay, the paint has dried. Now let me also do a wash of black over the shirt as well. This time, focusing more on the areas that will cast shadows, like in the middle where the buttons are, to give the shirt more dimension, and look more like a piece of clothing rather than a flat piece of plastic. And finally, the shirt is missing the buttons. I'm just gonna add them back in with a toothpick. With the body done, it is time to work on the face. Honestly, this head is perfectly fine the way it is, but I do want to make it less shiny and add a bit more skin texture to his face. Bruce is a little bit older and there's a lot going on with his face. From this image here, I can see that his cheeks are a bit red, and I'll add a bit of red to the rest of the face too to balance it out a bit. And And then let me add a little bit of highlight to the high points of his face. Next, the stubble, or facial hair. I want him to look like he shaved in the morning, but the facial hair is starting to grow out. It appears that his facial hair has a bit of green tint to it, so I'm going to rub a tiny amount of green around his jaw and mouth. And then tone it down a bit more with a deep brown. And lastly, the hair. The gray they used is nice, but I want a bit more color in it, so let me add a small amount of the same brown onto the hair. And then give him some more white hair on the sides. And a little bit more at the top. Alright, here's Bruce's head. I love it. The original head already looks like Mark Ruffalo, but the painted one looks much more realistic. Awesome! Here's Bruce Banner all painted. At a glance, the changes are pretty minor, and I have to give props to Hasbro, because the figure itself is pretty well made. I feel like this is one of the better civilian clothing figures they've done. The colors weren't overly saturated or bright. It was mostly the shine that I didn't like. That said, I'm really proud of the paintwork I've done. The shirt could be better, but I didn't have the patience to work on the finer details. The overall tone just looks convincing to me. Like yes, it's a figure, but it also looks like a real person too. Especially the head. I feel like my camera isn't really capturing what it looks like in person. It looks like a mini Hot Toys head up close in person. But back to my statement from earlier. I still find this figure very uninteresting. There isn't much you can do with Bruce when it comes to posing. And with him being in this specific Infinity War outfit, it's hard to pair him up with other figures as well, as he only wore this outfit in the later half of the movie. The only figure I can kind of pair him up with is the Gladiator Hulk. I feel like this should have been released as a 2-pack, along with the Build-A-Figure Smart Hulk figure, or the updated Hulkbuster. That would have made this figure worth getting in my opinion. What do you think? Do you have this Bruce Banner as well? If so, how are you displaying yours? Let me know down below. Alright, let me end this with a photo shoot. I couldn't come up with that many poses to do with Bruce, but he does photograph very well. If he doesn't fall, that is. Part of me feels like he should have come with more accessories, but what could have been included? An extra angry head and an extra pair of hands that are turning green? Or maybe the arm of the Hulkbuster? Speaking of, for those who caught my last 2 streams, I've begun planning out my Infinity War display. Turns out, I have most of the figures I need for that display, but I needed to map out the formation and what scenes to include. Thank you for those who were there giving me suggestions. I've sort of mapped up the composition and where to place each figure. Check my streams out if you're interested in seeing my brainstorming process. But back to Bruce. Despite him being in the correct outfit, he's kind of the only one that feels out of place. There's no one I can pair him with besides the not screen accurate Cull Obsidian. But even that pairing is a little off. It should have been the Hulkbuster. But anyway, I still need more time to plan out the display, as there's going to be a lot of moving parts involved. I want the display to be as epic as possible, so I don't expect it to be finished until maybe the end of 2025. I'll be working on other things in the meantime, and maybe I'll go back and work on one small section of the Infinity War display here and there. I have one more suited figure I want to work on, so look forward to that next. And as always, stay inspired and I'll see you soon. I can make it, so can you.